It's the Open Bedroom Doors Show.
I'm Angela Skirtu, and I open bedroom doors. Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Skirtu. I am a licensed marriage therapist and an ASEX certified sex therapist, and we have a great show for you today. We have with us today Just Jude, and we're going to learn all about Jude today. So why don't you tell the audience a little about yourself?
So I'm 60 years old. I am in the BDSM swinger lifestyle. So I am a submissive, flexible. So that's about it. Just me.
Just you. This is a segment on the show we call Sex Positions, where I judge a unique topic in sexual health that I found in the media. Today's sex position topic is 8 2024 sex trends you've probably not tried but should consider. It's in Grazia magazine. And actually, I found one on shibari, which is a type of rope play. I have a lot of people reach out to me about different BDSM and kink topics. And shibari is just a type of rope play in which there's a bunch of things. You can be hanging from the rafters tied. It can be more about like the beauty and like almost a lingerie type of tying. So if you want to try it, totally cool. I would do research. Like, please research. This is the one thing that I have to say again and again. Do research and talk to your partner. If you do the research and figure out different ways to do this, there are classes you can take. There are videos online that you can watch to show you how to do this in safe ways. Actually, there's beautiful ways you can tie a partner up to just look gorgeous. Like some of it is just literally, it's a lingerie look that is rope centered. That is beautiful. So if you want to do rope tying, please have at it. I am not here to judge you. I'm here to encourage the love and the excitement that you get out of these different sexual experiences or erotic experiences. But my big request, my big judgment to all of you, you're not talking enough. You're not being direct with your partner. So please talk about what you want to do. Talk about what you're wanting to get out of it, and then do some research and get into a community where you can learn how to do it, because there are communities where they're teaching people how to do shibari rope tying. We're always looking for sponsors. If you're interested in sponsoring the next sex position, please reach out at openbedroomdoors.com and submit a contact form. We will even let you pick the position. Want to spice up your sex life? Then be sure to pick up a copy of my new book, From No to Yes Sex.
Tired of routine sex? Feeling more like roommates than lovers? Wondering where the passion went or if it was ever really there? You're not alone. And guess what? You don't have to settle for a sex life that's just meh. Better sex doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts in your head. And from no to yes sex, I'll help you break free from shame, outdated beliefs, and unspoken frustrations that have been keeping you stuck. When you change the way you think about sex, you change the way you show up for sex. And that's where the magic happens. This book will help you understand why you're not getting the sex you crave. Rewire negative thoughts about sex, your body, and desire. And finally, learn how to communicate what you actually want in bed. You'll stop treating sex like an obligation and start wanting it again. No shame, no fluff, just straight talk and strategies, and a whole lot of yes moments. Yeah! This is the first book in my Open Bedroom Doors book series, where we strip away the awkwardness and build a foundation for lasting passion. Whether you're in a long-term relationship that's lost its fire or just tired of going through the emotions, this book is your invitation to transform your love life one thought at a time. Don't wait, order now.
Let's dive right into this interview. I have with me Just Jude. She's Just Jude. And today we're going to talk about BDSM, actually. Yeah. So tell me, how long... Well, first just tell everybody what you do in the BDSM world. Because, I mean, people... It's funny as I'm doing this, like, most people don't know what BDSM is, or people don't know what, like, or they have misinterpretations. So, like, why don't you give a little intro to, like, what's BDSM first?
BDSM really it's such a variety, a wide range of things, of kinks, basically. You know, what do you want to do in the bedroom? There are doms and subs.
Yeah, so we should say bondage, dominance, sadomasochism, right? Isn't that what BDSM stands for? But you are correct. Like there's more to it. Like even though like it's really the kink community and anything that's outside of the vanilla way of being sexual, right?
And when most people think BDSM, they're like, oh my God, somebody's getting beaten.
Well, they often think about the 50 Shades of Grey, which is a version, but most people in the BDSM community do not like 50 Shades of Grey because there wasn't a lot of really good consent conversations going on.
Correct. They might have a contract in the 50 Shades, but there wasn't a consent.
And there was a lot of coercion that was involved in that movie, which is, again, why people who are like real, like stone cold, I don't know, like, I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Like, I don't know if I'm stone cold, Angela.
That's a thing.
That's a good, well, tell me. So, but there's like different ways. So like, what are some of the different ways you can play in BDSM? Because I don't think people realize how many ways there are to be in that community.
There's a true Dom.
Okay.
Is really not somebody, there's a difference. Like when people say to you, oh, I'm a Dom. And I'm like, no, you're not. But
I love it. Just Jude is judging you because you're not quite a Dom.
Because a true Dom thinks about everything, thinks about your total care. Mm-hmm. Like if I do this, how's this going to affect her? They're looking at the sensual side. They're looking at how you can come out of your shell a little bit more. Mm-hmm. They might control something, but it's a control to help you come out of your shell and enjoy something a little bit. There's always a consent. There's always a conversation. And even afterwards, there's an aftercare that they'll do. And they're like making sure that you're okay and talk about what just happened. Like, were you okay with this? Are you okay with that? Or even cleaning up. Like there's a sensual side. There's so many different levels. It's not just flogging somebody, being a masochist and sadist. Yes, there are those. And everything kind of mixes in. So that's why those conversations of what you're comfortable with, there's checklists you can even do. And there's, I can't remember the one website, but you can kind of answer all these 100 questions and it kind of puts you into what you like, what you enjoy.
Yeah, there's different apps and things out there. And so like as the sex therapist, I'll give you guys like I feel like there's levels and layers that you can even be involved. So like when you're talking about a true Dom, you're talking about somebody who's spent a lot of time looking into like creating scenes. There's deep conversations behind the scenes about like what's okay, what's not okay. Actually, I learned this from the BDSM community. There's this whole conversation before of limits and interests. What are your limits? And limits are the boundaries that are not okay, that like you're not allowed to cross. But even in limits, there can be layers to that.
There's a hard limit. There's a soft limit.
Yep.
So
she's already on it. She's like, Angela, let me get in because I'm in the community.
So there are those limits, and there are websites out there that kind of like a membership that people can talk to. They can enjoy different events that might be going on. A lot of times we call them munches, which are just meet and greets. You're just going to a public place just to meet people.
At a layer below, there's something I like to call BDSM light and kink light, which is when people are dabblers, where they like these little ideas. I still would really like you guys to have consenting conversations about these things if you're dabbling. But like, I think even vanilla couples sometimes dabble with like tying each other up or even a little bit of light impact play or heavy impact play. But like
pulling hair,
pull your hair, exactly, hair pulling, right? Like, yeah, there's
like,
some,
ooh.
there's a little. I know it's sexy. I showed you one that was really good, by the way. It's really sexy, really, really sexy. The one thing that I think is so important is that people need to have these consent conversations, and I think people struggle with it. What are your thoughts about that?
People do struggle with it, and I think people that are newer into the communities don't realize. And they're not being taught like, hey, there's a huge thing about respect, a huge thing about consent. And people tend to lose that in transition, they're transitioning, whatever. But when they become new into the community, they're like, ooh, I want to try these things. They don't realize there's got to be a respect and consent.
What are the things, so I think you're also a little bit talking about vetting and the process of like being respected in the community. So I'm curious, like what kinds of things, if you're a new person who wants to try BDSM in one of these communities, what would be some things like pointers to help somebody build that respect in that community, or respect a partner, for example? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the biggest things, like even the munches, the meets and greets, going and just talking to other people, getting some feedback. Certain websites, there's classes. There's classes about how to be dominant. There's even support groups for doms and subs and masochists and sadists, and there's things out there for you to reach out to get educated. And it's, to me, what's so important is taking that time. If this really is something that you're interested in, take the time to learn.
What are good places to go?
For websites? Or?
Yeah, like what are good websites for people to look at that you think are like, I actually like this website?
So FetLife is probably one of the biggest one, fetlife.com, where you can become a member. You do get vetted. Everybody has a profile.
Okay.
So you can talk to people through there, but they show different events, different classes, different groups you can belong to. And there are even like some support groups. So there's many facets of it. And I mean, and BDSM isn't just about, how we said, flogging somebody and beating somebody. If a couple really wants to learn, it's taking that time. So, with choking, it's putting, it's practicing, putting the pressure. What does somebody feel comfortable with? There's, we talked about consent, but then there's even the consent, not consent, consensual,
consensual non-consent. There's times when people have a big conversation about like, actually, I'm consenting to you doing these things. Usually though, they've done it a few times and they feel like, you know what you're doing. So now like, I like the idea of having a sort of non-consensual scene, but it really was consenting to. Right.
And that builds into the trust, right? So as with a partner, you build trust. So that communication, the practicing, going back and forth, talking about what you like, what you don't like, you build a trust with somebody. And not everything is overnight. So it's something you want to build up to. Once you trust somebody, you give that consent, they should know you well enough to know at that point what you're going to enjoy, what you're not going to enjoy, what limit can I go to.
So I do want to talk about that very briefly. So there are people who have what we call their rape fantasies. And in real rape, you don't have a choice, and it is terrifying. So this isn't like, please don't do anything non-consensual. But there are people who have fetishized or gotten excited about the like, no, stop, don't. But like, really it is a yes. They've talked about it. There's just an excitement to that aggressive kind of like you're grabbing them, you're taking them, and so that's part of what's involved in that scene. And so this consensual non-consent is essentially an ability to create this like role play around a non-consensual act, but that truly is consensual. They've just talked about it outside of the scene so that in their mind and their role play, they can play around with the concept of, no, stop, don't, you can't, but do it.
Yeah.
Right? And like, it's a little, and it gets more aggressive. And like, sometimes people like to wrestle around with each other. They like just a very visceral sexual experience, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And with all that, I mean, there's a trust.
Yes. But they're building trust, because then every time you do that scene and you've talked about what's okay or not okay before, then you show through action in the scene, hey, we were able to do the things we talked about. It felt respectful and safe. Then you're building, I feel like you probably build like crazy amounts of trust doing stuff like that. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, you have to, because if you don't have that, it does not work.
Yeah.
It's like, next.
Move along. No, but I don't think people realize how much in consent conversations they're building trust with each other, right? Like, so I have a book, it's Helping Couples Overcome Infidelity. And in the book, I write about, I call it the trust equation. And it basically is say plus do over time equals earned trust. So every time your actions meet your words over time, you build trust in a relationship. So I imagine in the BDSM community, like literally all that time, spending time consenting and then showing through your sexy action that like, wow, like I can actually follow through with my word is like huge trust building.
It is. It's extreme.
And I've also learned that some people are working through trauma in the BDSM community. Could you
And
speak
actually,
a little bit to that?
Yeah, because there are people who like to be in those. A lot of times, masochist and sadist. There's usually some kind of trauma somewhere in their life, and there's a reason why they enjoy certain acts. And some of those is because it puts you into I always want to say it's like a trance it's
subspace. That's what they call it.
Subspace, that where you're pushed to a certain limit, you're enjoying it, but at the same time you're in this subspace where it's just going. And
a way to, so if you're a business person listening to this, it's flow. Basically, have you ever heard of flow? When you're just in this zone and you're like, oh man. So subspace is the sexual version of flow in the workspace, where you're just like in it and you're feeling good. But the difference is consent. So like when you are put into a situation where you're not consenting, you don't go into flow, you go into dissociation.
Yeah.
But flow or subspace is when you're like in it and you are like it's like being on a higher plane, right?
Right. You just
I don't know how to explain it.
You just kind of zone out, but you're
in a zone.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I may or may not be speaking from experience. I can neither confirm nor deny.
But yeah, I mean, it is. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, but like to get there though, again, you have to have
words.
Practice. Oh, safe words as well.
Safe words.
I'm curious about these safe words. So like, is it like the safe word and that shuts everything down, or are there even layered safe words for people?
Usually a safe word will shut it down.
Okay, so safe word is like, no, we're stopping. What's a good safe word you've heard?
There's all, people use some of the strangest things. I think one point, I even used the word umbrella.
Umbrella. How can you use a safe word though if you're like, because I know people do gags and stuff like that. So like, what would you do for that?
Then you have that communication of your hands.
Oh, okay.
Or
so
somebody,
like, you're like a ball man.
Well, sometimes your hands could be on their hands. So if you do a double tap, they've had people where they'll hold a ball. And if it becomes too much, they'll drop the ball.
I've heard, that's so cool that you mentioned that. I knew this couple that the ball was the way they did it because they liked the gagging and they also liked the choking. But so that was the way that they were kind of saying, boom, all right, and we need to let that. So there was some way to communicate.
There's always some way to communicate. But you got to talk about that with your partner and figure that out.
And, I have worked with a lot of people in the BDSM community. As a sex therapist, it's my job to work with all the people. And I love all your values and you can be whatever you need to be. But it was interesting. There was one situation where it was a woman in a sub-dom position. And the thing that he did that she said was so sexy is every now and then he'd like grab her chin, look her in the eyes and be like, hey, are you with me? Like, and that was like consent in the moment, but in a really sexy way. And I was like, I could even feel it myself. Like, I see why. Because he wanted to make sure she was present, she was in it, and she was enjoying it. Because she actually had dissociation where she would sometimes go to, I call it going to Neverland when you dissociate. And so him bringing her back was like, oh, I'm present and I'm very present.
And it is. And that's what, like when you're with your partners, having as you said, touching the face and just saying, are you okay? There's certain things that you can do along the way that it makes a huge impact. Not that kind of impact, but
not this impact. This impact. But no, it's true. Like, so I did get to see a scene of like the ropes, shibari, is it shibari ropes in person. They did it with clothes on because it was like in a public space. But I'm always watching those interactions, and I saw the person tying kept like checking in, and they like did face-to-face talking. So the person being tied up was clearly like enamored, but even in that space, they were like, hey, are we okay? You doing all right? And so I thought it was really cool to watch like that interaction and them showing consent in the experience. So we're towards the end of this interview. I want to, for anybody who is interested in learning about the BDSM community or potentially getting involved, what one piece of advice would you give newbies trying to trek into the field of BDSM?
Do some reading. Maybe get onto fetlife.com. Get into some groups, come to some of the meet and greets, talk to people. There's nothing wrong, and there's no judgments in going to these and meet and greets and just talking to people and kind of see how you feel.
And I want to add, you can just be a fly on the wall too. You don't have to interact the first time you go. You can just be an observer, get used to the experience. You can talk the second time or the third time.
Yeah. Bring a friend.
Bring a friend. I love it. Bring
The
a
more
friend
the
to your
merrier.
BDSM community. Well, we have been speaking with Just Jude. Thank you so much for your interview.
No problem. Thank you.
That's too spicy. Well, guys, on the Open Bedroom Doors show, we often have content that's a little too spicy for your typical social media platforms. So for those of you who are like, I love everything Angela Skirtu and I want to know all the spicy details, we actually have a space where we put the uncut shows, and it is at patreon.com/openbedroomdoors. So you can subscribe to that channel and get all the behind the scenes, all that spicy stuff that I wasn't able to put in the show. That's too spicy. So I hope you can join me at patreon.com/openbedroomdoors. Keep in mind, that is how you support me. So it is a subscription channel where you have to pay to subscribe, but you are becoming a supporter of me and putting out this awesome content as a result. So please join me for those spicy things. Want to be a sponsor for the show? So we have all kinds of sponsorship opportunities, from endorsements to sponsoring an entire episode to sponsoring a section of episodes. And if you would like to become a sponsor, please go to openbedroomdoors.com and look for the sponsorship page to become a part of this show. We would love to have you. So if you want to be a sponsor, we have so many opportunities. This is how you support the show and you become a part of something cool. Because this show is all about creating sex education for free to educate the masses. So please visit me at openbedroomdoors.com and become a sponsor. Hi everyone, I like to answer your questions on every episode. Today I have with me my BDSM bears, Barry Bonds and Consent Cub, and we're answering your questions